Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. We're set for a pretty volatile trading week. We have a lot of stocks moving in a big way this morning. Tesla is definitely the star of the show. It opened up 5.5%, which is a giant move, especially for a company of this size. So it's running up. Basically, Tom, if we could pull up that CNBC article, that would be amazing. But they actually filed to potentially authorize more shares so then it can split its stock in the form of a stock dividend. So this is pretty big news. Tesla's looking to do another stock split. Again, it's in the form of a stock dividend, which is interesting. But either way, the market loved this news in the past. When Tesla split in the past, also when Apple split in the past, they ran up in a pretty big way. And then, Tom, I know even when Amazon and Google had that split news recently, it definitely was pretty beneficial in the short term, even though both of those stocks ended up pulling back a little bit as weeks went by.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm going to pull that up on the max daily chart here with Apple and go back to that dividend date because you're right that it seemed like the rumor heading up into that split was huge, Mike, because, you can see Apple here started getting some insane gaps to the upside. And over the course of a few months, it ran from $90 all the way up to $137 and then started really tanking off after the split happened. But I will say, even though it tanked off after the split, Mike, it recovered up very quickly within just a couple of months. So it's not like it was even that terrible, but it's very interesting to look at because as we know, investors love to hear split news. And obviously it's great to see that Tesla is going to be doing this just like Apple did. And obviously Tesla did this in the past, Mike, and they got a lot of hype out of it. So hopefully we see it continuing to happen here. I will say on the daily chart, Mike, Tesla looks pretty good right now. It was consolidating a lot up there around $1,000, and we got that huge breakout up above it today. So I'm glad this news was able to bring us some nice price action to start the week off hot.
Yeah, it's definitely a good start to the week. Looking across my watch list, of course, we have Tesla up about 5%. DraftKings is up almost 3%. Apple is, it's okay, but still, there's a lot of good momentum to start the week, which is awesome to see. We have a couple big earnings later on, but yeah, Tom, it's definitely a good start to the week. Even Zoom's up.
Yeah, it's awesome. Chewy's great. Zoom's great. DraftKings. Can it be a better Monday for us? This is awesome. Hopefully it keeps continuing today. I can see Square's also starting to climb up the leaderboard along with First Solar or FSLR is actually really breaking out. I wonder how Enphase is looking today. Yeah, they're actually coming up. Enphase might break above $200, Mike. That's a huge resistance right there. So hopefully we see a nice push up through that. Even Roblox is having a nice morning. So a lot of these growth stocks are turning around today, which is nice to see. Tesla is now at the top of my watch list, almost up 5%. It is pulling back a little bit, but yeah, I definitely had to bring that up. But Mike, we also can't forget about AMC. They're up today too. Nothing crazy compared to the past couple weeks, but it's nice to see AMC still getting this nice upwards momentum after I know it had a lot of hype last week. So hopefully this keeps happening.
Yeah, there we go. How are some of these marijuana stocks doing, like Tilray and SNDL?
Ooh, let's check it out. I know the MJ ETF doesn't look too hot. Looks like Tilray is just consolidating a little bit, which I know we say this a lot, Mike, but whenever stocks rise this much, like Tilray and some of these stocks did, you almost have to expect a couple days of pullbacks. But looking at it, it's definitely coming down today at market open. In Tilray's case, looks like CGC is also just consolidating, and even Sundial is starting to fall off a little bit too. So I guess they're just consolidating today. We'll have to see how they end up moving. But in Sundial's case, Mike, they're starting to fall off in a pretty major way. They're not all the way back down to that low of Thursday or anything like that, but they're definitely starting to turn back over here. So we'll have to keep our eyes on this sector overall. And I know that these bills are going through Congress right now regarding legalization. So we might see some more big news come out later in the week.
Yeah, we'll see. These stocks are so crazy, Tom. I remember we talked about this a little bit last week, but looking at SNDL, the implied volatility this morning was 320%. To put that into perspective, for as volatile as AMC is, that implied volatility is only 154%. So it's like, when we say these marijuana stocks are volatile, they are some of the most volatile stocks in the market. So it's like, SNDL, it's down 8% right now, but this thing can be anywhere in the next couple hours. So it's going to be a wild ride. And as we both know, Tom, these stocks are like heavily influenced by news.
Yeah, they really are. And we've been waiting for legalization news for a long time, at least on the federal level. So it's big to see that they're finally talking about this and that there's bills circulating through Congress. That's going to be huge for them. And like you said, Mike, if that ends up passing and this gets legalized, I feel like these stocks could really go on a major uptrend. Like we've seen in the past, Mike, Tilray, for example, if we go to like that Max Weekly chart, hit $300 whenever Canada was legalizing marijuana. So that was huge. I know back then Canada legalized and a lot of the marijuana stocks fell back down, but they had a huge uptrend into that. So maybe we'll see another move similar to that. But I know that some of these stocks like Tilray, Mike, they've been beaten down forever. So I hope investors start coming back into these.
Yeah, we'll see. And then another thing to keep in mind really quickly is that with this bill, right now it's just the House. So it's like even if the House passes the bill, we still have to deal with the Senate. So we'll see what happens. But either way, it's good news for these stocks. Carlos said, is the bill going through Congress today? From my understanding, it is. There were a couple different articles I read on Friday that all of them said that the House was going to vote on the bill on Monday. So I'm not sure on the exact time or anything like that, but from all the articles I read, it said Monday.
Yeah, let's see. I looked it up and I found it on a website called The Hill, apparently. Looks like it says that they are going to be voting on it this week, which is nice to see. Let's go ahead and read through here a little bit. The bill is set to be taken up by the House Rules Committee on Wednesday and we'll get a vote on the floor by the end of the week. So as we know, this stuff will take time. I'm sure that they're going to be talking about the bill and stuff pretty much every day this week in Congress and kind of going over it before the vote. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation, Mike. And I just can't wait to see if it gets legalized or not. I know that I feel like it's been kind of strange. There's like a few states that have it legalized and then a lot of states that don't. And the ones that do have it legalized have been making a lot of tax money and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm not too big into the specifics of it. But in the end, I mean, it helps out a lot of companies. And we've even been seeing, Mike, a lot of big players like Anheuser-Busch make some investments in some of these marijuana stocks. I know back in the day, Anheuser-Busch was talking about bringing out a marijuana drink and stuff like that. And there's lots of other companies that are getting into it as well. So if it gets legalized, that'll be big. And I know it'll also help banks to lend out to some of these companies because right now I've also heard that the marijuana stocks have a lot of issues getting loans from banks because it's not federally legalized. So they have a lot of issues and hopefully they get resolved soon.
Yep, very interesting. And then we also had Cornish mention Uber, Tom. He said Uber's moving higher. What's going on with that one?
Yeah, they're definitely doing well. I know Uber had that great news last week with the taxis in New York City. So far today, it's looking pretty positive. I will say last week on Thursday and Friday, Uber had a lot of issues breaking up above $35. So maybe if we see Uber break 35 today, we could see a pretty nice move up. But so far today, it's having a nice move. That IV really shot up this morning, Mike, which was interesting. It's almost back up to 60%. So hopefully we continue to see some nice upwards momentum here. Maybe we'll catch a breakout on this one later in the day. But for right now, it's moving nice and steady.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. And then there was one other stock I wanted to cover before we move on, and that's Palantir. I know we're seeing a lot of these other growth plays move up, and I just wanted to check in on it.
Yeah, it definitely looks hot today. It's up into the middle of the range of last week. There was definitely a lot of resistance, kind of around where we're at 1325, right in the middle of the range here. Above that, there's a big resistance coming up at 1355. And I will say, Palantir looks like it's consolidating in a pretty good way here, Mike. We've been pretty flat for the past 5 or 6 trading days. So maybe we'll finally see a nice breakout here. It seems like a lot of these growth stocks have been in this similar pattern, and I feel like a lot of them are setting up pretty well to break out. So hopefully we see a nice continuation out of the whole growth sector. But yeah, Palantir itself setting up nice, Mike. And if we see that breakout this week, I feel like it could end up being a pretty good move, especially considering since we've been consolidating here for almost a week straight.
Yeah, that's true. True. And then another interesting setup that I've been watching was Mara and then even Riot. These are the two crypto ETFs. Or not, no, they're not ETFs, sorry. But they move with crypto, we'll say that. But yeah, I mean, they're booming up. I know Bitcoin was moving in a decent way recently.
Yeah, was it? What was it moving over the weekend? Because Mara and Riot had a nice gap this morning. That looks awesome. Let's go check out the Bitcoin futures slash BTC. Wow, Mike, they really ripped up. They gapped up above 45,000 and wow, we're almost up to 48K now. So this is actually pretty big with Bitcoin. And I'm glad to see Mara and Riot gapping up this morning, Mike. Good catch, because I definitely would have forgot about these ones. Yeah, Riot itself is really breaking out. So pretty explosive moves here out of these stocks that follow Bitcoin. And I will say, Mike, like Riot on the chart here looks pretty similar to a lot of these other growth plays that are recovering up. Like I love this type of setup, and I don't want to say it looks like Facebook, but it kind of does on the way it's recovering up. You know, it's pretty similar actually compared to a lot of these other beaten down plays. So glad to see it breaking out. And I know Bitcoin's been getting some more momentum, like you mentioned, especially now that it's up at like 48K. We actually just recently broke that huge resistance at 45,000. That had been a big level over the past couple months, Mike. Like we can see Bitcoin had been really consolidating there.
Yep. All right. So we have Square saying VXX is moving higher. Good morning. Square also said, I thought the VXX is the inverse of the SPY. Both are moving up. Is the VXX on a short squeeze? So good question. So VXX is not the inverse of the SPY. Basically, VXX represents volatility. So the more volatility that the market expects, the higher VXX goes. But what's interesting is that VXX normally volatility rises when the market falls. But you are seeing something very interesting. So, like Tom just showed on the chart, we saw UVXY falling. We saw the Vix Index basically falling, and we're seeing VXX up 11%. We saw this a couple weeks ago, or yeah, it was on March 15th. Basically, the market was going up, and then VXX exploded up. So this does look like another short squeeze or a gamma squeeze. So I will say that what we are seeing with the VIX right now is definitely out of the ordinary, and this happened like a week or two ago.
Yeah, it did. And, you know, we saw Barclays suspend something with the VXX. I forgot exactly what they did, Mike. It was a little bit strange, but they suspended something with VXX, like some notes or something, and it ended up making VXX explode as a lot of those companies and institutions got short squeezed. And I'm wondering what's happening today, Mike. I wonder if it's a similar setup or a similar situation, because you're definitely right. We're not seeing the VIX Index itself rising like this. Like the VIX Index is just slowly falling over. So to see VXX rising like this again, Mike, is pretty telling. And we're all the way back up above $28 again. So I wonder how high this one's going to get. I know last week, whenever this happened, Mike, we ran from pretty much $25 all the way up to 41 within 2 trading days. So we just started at 25. I'm not saying we're going to get back to 41 again, but it's starting to really run up today, Mike, and it's getting crazy. Like, I wonder what's happening with the VXX. Like, do you think that this is another short squeeze happening? Or, I mean, it's just, it's crazy to look at these situations and trying to draw conclusions, because it's like, man, there's so much information we have to look at and everything, but it's going to be hard to tell. But I hope it continues up today and makes for some nice momentum like it did last time.
Yeah, so basically it originally short squeezed because Barclays suspended like the issuance of new shares, if we keep it simple. And a lot of institutions short VXX because, Tom, check out a max weekly of VXX. It is brutal. So basically, we have a bunch of funds that short VXX because it's very lucrative. But then, you know, when Barclays says, hey, you know, we're doing something out of the ordinary and we're stopping the issuances of new notes, we'll call them, but technically they're, you know, in simple terms, they're shares. But basically, it kind of screwed over the hedge funds. They were forced to cover some of their shares. And then, Tom, check this out, too. So when VXX rises 13% in a couple hours or whatever, basically, all of the people who bought, like, short-term call options on them, the funds who sold them those short-term call options, they're kind of forced to buy shares to cover the short calls that they sold to open. So it's kind of a complex situation, but long story short, it looks like the funds are getting screwed over just like they did on March 15th.
Hey, I'll take it. You know, after everything the funds do, I'll take them getting hit a little bit. You know, I know they've had some crazy stuff with GameStop and AMC and stuff like that the past couple of years. So, hopefully they played their cards right and they didn't over leverage into VXX or anything. That would definitely be be some bad news for them, to say the least. But in the end, it's not it's nice to see this price action, Mike. We're up 12.8%. Definitely probably hurting some of the funds, but hey, like I said, I'll take it. Looks like on the daily chart, VXX is starting to come back up in a good way. So it honestly looks like a pretty nice uptrend. But I will say, Mike, just like we said, this happened a couple weeks ago, so be careful because we can see what happened here. I'm sure a lot of traders, Mike, over the first couple days got pretty excited, and they probably got into a lot of call options. And then, as we can see, VXX tanked right back off to the downside. So keep in mind that IV is flying and the VXX is flying up. So you're going to have to be really careful getting call options on it. I'm all for intraday trades. Like if you want to get quick in and out day trades with some of these calls, awesome. But I will say swinging some of these calls overnight, Mike, is going to be super risky right now.
Yeah, so check this out, Tom. So we could see VXX is up 13%. VXX actually tracks VIX futures. So if you go to /VX, this is like the actual, this is what's actually driving VXX. And these are only up 1%. So by looking at this, we know for 100% fact that VXX is definitely moving up out of the ordinary. And that's because most likely that the funds are getting screwed over. So it's interesting. Shout out Square for pointing this one out again, because it's definitely very out of the ordinary. And I made a video on March 15th explaining this situation a lot more in depth on the main channel.
Yeah, that was actually a really good video, Mike. I'll actually go get the link for that one really quick, and I'll throw it into the chat here in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I mean, I'm loving the way it's moving today, Mike. We're definitely getting a lot of nice price action out of the VXX. And I will say, Mike, as far as hedge funds getting screwed over, let's check back in on AMC today. It looks like AMC is actually leading my watch list besides VXX. It's up 8.5% right now, and it's starting to have a nice explosive move. We're actually retesting the high of last week. So I know AMC had a lot of hype last week along with GameStop, and actually GameStop's breaking out up to new highs here. So maybe we'll see AMC starting to break out of those weekly highs too. I know if they break 22.35, who knows, we might have a pretty nice uptrend on our hands.
Yeah, you know it. Yeah, so AMC is up around 8%. I'm seeing the next resistance right around 22.50.
Yeah, 22.50. Lots of areas between there where we've had a lot of touches. So hopefully we see some nice breakouts right there. I have one on my chart at 23. Let's check on this max daily chart, Mike, because I know that the biggest resistance is up there around $30. So hopefully we finally see a move, a nice breakout up towards 30 again. I think that would make for some pretty nice price action. But I know last week we had such a great move that a lot of personally, I thought we might see some more consolidation, but who knows? If the hype's there with AMC, it can definitely go on these big runs. And I'll be really curious to get on Wall Street Bets later today, Mike, and see what kind of funny things people are putting on there.
Yeah. Alrighty. So let's see. I'm just doing a quick scan to see some plays for today. Of course, there's a lot of action with VXX call options, but I'm also seeing some action with OXY puts. Let's see.
Yeah, Oxy puts. I was actually called this one out as my free day trade today, Mike. I actually had it. I believe if Oxy falls below 56.50, it would be a pretty good quick in and out scalp play. And looks like so far today, it's definitely falling off. I noticed a huge gap down today, Mike, in pre-market trading with these oil plays. And I went and checked out crude oil, and look at crude. It's actually falling right back down. We're back down to 105.50 per barrel. So definitely better than 115, 116 where we were last week. So I'm glad to see crude pulling back a little bit here, Mike. Maybe this will definitely help some of our gas prices, but I know Oxy going down is not going to be good in the short term, especially for Warren Buffett. As we know, he's been buying into Oxy at some pretty high prices. So I'm curious to see how Oxy ends up performing. And I will say, Mike, look at this on the daily chart. I don't know about you, but Oxy looks like it's due for a bit of a pullback here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see it. We'll see. Well, did you see crude oil futures? Those were tanking.
Yeah, they're all the way down to like 105. I saw that big gap down last night, and I started like looking at these oil plays when I woke up this morning, and I was just so surprised to see them down that much. Like I said, I had that day trade on Oxy below 56.50, so looks like it ended up playing out very well here.
Awesome. There we go. Tom, are you eyeing up any specific setups today, or is anything catching your eye?
You know, I was really trying to eye up some of these airlines. I talked about it a little bit in last night's video, but they did well. You know, they came up this morning in pre-market, but whenever the market opened, they just started falling back off and not really doing anything. The setups just, they don't look the best to me right now. I really hope to see some of these airlines continue to break out, but I'm a little bit worried we might see some consolidation. They had some pretty explosive moves last week, so you know, I guess that it is what it is, but hopefully we see Southwest keep going, Mike. Like, they had some great news come out. They're definitely back on a big uptrend. I will say, though, they're coming back up into some major resistances, and just like we've been saying with a lot of these growth plays, you know, a lot of these stocks have been flying up so much lately that we're just kind of eyeing up a bit of a pullback, and hopefully they just keep flying, but I'm just kind of waiting for a bit of like a slowdown here to happen pretty soon. I was also eyeing up some of these defense plays, Mike, like kind of like Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Like at the end of last week, these stocks were doing very, very well, especially like in Lockheed and General Dynamics case. And then this morning, they really fell back over. So interesting. Maybe we'll see a bit of a pullback out of some of these like stocks that have been flying up with the Russian news.
Yeah, we'll see. And then, Tom, just so you know, I got the link for the VXX short squeeze posted in the chat, just so you know.
Okay, cool. That way I don't double up on it.
Yeah, there we go. But anyways, with the next question, we had Iranical ask about HPQ. So basically this morning I was reading on CNBC that HPQ, or HP, is set to acquire Poly for $3.3 billion. As we would expect, Tom, HPQ is down 5% today because normally the money, or the company who is paying the money, normally falls. So that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking about like a fundamental analysis on HPQ, we would need at least we would need more time. But for the short term, this movement is very common for an acquisition play.
Yeah, it definitely is. We see this happen quite a bit. I went ahead and got the article up for everybody just in case they were interested. I did find a good one on Reuters, but you know, apparently I reached my article limit. So, you know, God forbid. I know all these websites, Mike, they keep having these article limits on there, but yeah, HPQ is pulling back today. Like you said, you know, a lot of times when the company pays the money, or the company buying out another company, generally starts to fall off a little bit because, you know, they're forking out a lot of cash in the short term to get the deal done, or at least they're pricing in, you know, losing some of that money over the next couple of years if they are paying it out that way. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see them coming down. I will say, Mike, like looking at HPQ on the 1-year daily chart, they were up there straddling that high right around $40, and looks like they got a big hit off that resistance again. And this news is just only going to help the downtrend. So I hope that HPQ starts recovering back. And I thought I'd heard some pretty big news about that Poly company over the past couple of years, Mike. So I'll have to look into them a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see. And then another thing is, normally, like in HPQ's case, normally when they're buying the company, they're paying a little bit of a premium. So that's another reason why the stock normally falls in the short term. Tom, so normally like whatever the company is, the company who's buying the other one normally has to pay a bit of a premium just because they're buying them out. So yeah, I mean, good stuff there though. Tom, I'm continuing to look at VXX, and believe it or not, it is now up 18%.
Oh my gosh, it's happening again, Mike. It's just not slowing down. It keeps going, and man, it's going to be tough. It's all the way up at $30 a share. If I was day trading this one, Mike, it'd be a tough one. You know, like you'd have to, personally, I think just getting a quick scalp would be the way to go, or just not even play it, because I mean, look at the way it's moving. Definitely getting explosive. And like we said, like last week, whenever this stock moved like this, we ran up to like $41 over a couple of days. So I'm really curious to see how high VXX can get today. And I can't wait to see some nice articles come out about this one, because I'm going to be curious to see like what the exact specifics were with this. Like, I know that, you know, we can like look at different hypotheticals and stuff like that, but I just really want to see like exactly what happened. Maybe somebody will like do some nice investigations on this. I know like I should say like back when this happened in March, Mike, we didn't really see too many articles come out about it, did we? Like I didn't see too many like, big articles like explaining anything in depth anyways. The only big thing I saw was really your video, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there were like a couple like small articles that just mainly covered what Barclays did, but I didn't really see any articles explaining why what Barclays said caused the ETF or ETN to rise up. But yeah, I definitely know what you mean. And Tom, it was just up 18% and now it's only up 10%.
Yeah, it turned over so fast. Like, I cannot believe it's already back to 10%. It fell 8% at like the snap of your fingers. So that's pretty insane to see it down this much. This is why you got to be careful with this one, guys. Like I said, if I was day trading it, I would definitely be a little bit worried. It looks like we are actually halted now, Mike. I believe we just got halted. Let's check out that. Yeah, I think we did on the 1 minute. Definitely looks like a halt to me. Stock is not going anywhere. Oh yeah, there we go, Mike. Look at the asks now, $480 on this halt. I mean, I know it's just a crazy ask there because the halt, but still, I mean that's crazy to see it.
Yeah, and then the bid's at like $10. Gosh.
These halts are always hilarious when they happen.
Yeah. Alrighty, and let's see. So yeah, VXX is going crazy. I'm reading through some of these other comments. We have Carlos saying thoughts on the NEO recovery. Yeah, it's looking pretty good today, Tom. It's up 6.5%, and I'll say over the past week or two, NEO just exploded up with all these other China stocks, and it's doing pretty good.
Yeah, it did. It exploded up, but they had that negative earnings report, Mike, that came in, and it just drove the stock down for a couple days. But I will say they held their ground very well, even though they did fall. Like I said, they held a major support here, right around like $19.30. That was a pretty big bounce there last week, and we've had multiple moves there. So glad to see it hold up on this level. We're now back up above $20, which is great. And even though they had that bad earnings report last week, Mike, it looks like they're recovering right back. So I'm glad to see that. I know that with these EV plays recently, we saw Rivian come in with a negative earnings report. We saw Lucid come in with a negative earnings report as well. Over the past couple months. So looking at NEO, it wasn't too, like too surprising to see the stock drop a little bit, considering that all the other EV plays have been moving down with earnings as well. And I really hope to see them recover though. I know that it wasn't too surprising to see the downtrend, but they are recovering back in a major way, Mike. And I'm curious to see if they'll get back up towards like $23. That would be a great recovery.
Yeah, we'll see. It definitely has momentum right now, and it has a good amount of volume flowing in too. So
I know XPEV actually had some nice earnings this morning, and they actually ended up moving up, which was good to see. It's been a while since we've seen an EV company have some positive movement off earnings.
Yeah, there we go. Because like even with Lucid and Rivian, like those were brutal reports.
Yeah, they really were, and I'm curious if like XPEV was already priced in a little bit because they did kind of tank off with NEO. Down quite a bit, actually, whenever NEO's earnings report came out. I haven't even really read in too much to XPEV, so keep that in mind. It could still be a little negative. We just have to read into it. I know that right now, Mike, the outlooks seem like they're more important than even the quarterly numbers. So hopefully we continue to see some good outlooks, and maybe they'll report some good pre-order numbers or something like that. That would obviously be a good thing to hear. But as we know, these EV companies have had a lot of issues lately, and I know that like in Rivian's case, it has a lot of big backers like Ford, Amazon. I know George Soros bought in, so it's pretty crazy to see it going so low with all these big players. But hey, those valuations matter, Mike. And this some of these EV plays definitely, I think it's definitely humbled a lot of traders. Like a lot of these plays like Rivian, I feel really bad for a lot of guys who were buying in at like 120.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, even Soros was in around 100. So. He's probably hurting too. Yeah,
and he's a big player. We know he's been huge in the stock market over the past 50 years at this point. Yeah. Like that guy's been around for a long time, and he's been a big player. Even with like currency and stuff, that guy is huge. So it's big to see him down as well. And we've even been seeing like Nancy Pelosi down on a lot of her positions, like on Micron and Roblox and stocks like that. Like it's been pretty big to see a lot of these, stock market like I don't want to call them masterminds, but a lot of these people who obviously have some nice inside information, even they're losing.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. And then we have Square saying, "What's an ask?" So basically, the ask. Tom, can you highlight like the bid and ask with your cursor really quickly? So basically, the ask for VXX right now is at 480. Basically, what the ask is the lowest price someone is willing to sell that security at, and the bid is the highest price someone is willing to buy that security at. Right now, the numbers are ridiculous right now because VXX is halted. VXX is at like $28 a share, and then the most someone's willing to pay for that $28 a share is only $9.99. While on the other hand, someone else, like the lowest they're willing to sell it for is 480. But I cannot stress enough, this is a very skewed example because the stock is halted, so you never see spreads this wide. And the spread is basically the difference between the bid and the ask. Or at least that's what a spread is in terms of like stocks. Like an option spread's a little bit different, but perfect. We can see that it just unhalted, and we can see that right now the ETF's trading for like $27.60, bids at $27.62, ask at $27.80. So it keeps fluctuating, but that's a little quick explanation.
Yeah, and a lot of people love to sit here and like watch these level twos, and then they like to sit here and watch like the time and sales as well to kind of like see some of the orders going through and everything like that. So like if you look at the level 2, you can see the bid is like $27.95, the ask is $28.11. So there is a bit of like a spread there, kind of like what Mike had said. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And looking at the VIX here, Mike, I'm curious to see if it continues up. Let's see on the 5-minute chart. It looks like initially at the halt, it got like a bit of a move back up, but now it's kind of consolidating back down. I'm curious how this one's going to go, Mike, because I know that like whenever these stocks start rising, especially like up 10%, they start coming up on a lot of people's scanners and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll get like a bit of a second leg up here soon.
True. Yeah, we'll see. That's actually a good point, Tom. Like when we have these stocks run up, of course, like a lot of times they run up because they have, because of a catalyst or because of a short squeeze or news or anything, right? But when it's at that high of day, and let's say when it's up 5%, 10%, whatever, you start seeing it on all these like scanners and breakout stock websites and all this, and it just shows more people. It gives the stock more exposure to more people, which normally makes it rise even more.
Yeah, it definitely does. And looking at it right now, it looks like it's trying to come back. It looks like it's having a lot of issues getting the type of explosive movement it was having earlier, but is definitely back on the uptrend, Mike. Hopefully we continue to see this one happen. I know the other day when this happened a couple weeks ago, Mike, it was up like 40% or something intraday. I'm going to be really curious to see how high it ends up going. I know if we start breaking back above 30, I'll be pretty happy here, and it's starting to really get a nice move again. Let's go check back in on VIX itself, because look at this. Actually, the Vix Index, Mike, is actually getting some nice upwards momentum itself. And obviously, it's not moving like VXX, but at least now we're seeing the VIX start to pop up too. Let's check out UVXY. Looks like UVXY is actually starting to break out too, Mike. So pretty crazy to see there. The SPY is starting to turn back over very, very slightly. So definitely strange today, because I know last time those other stocks like UVXY and the VIX Index didn't end up moving too much. So it's interesting to see those ones starting to pop up now too. But maybe that has something to do with the SPY starting to turn over.
Yeah, true. Alrighty. And then looking at some of these like potash plays, Tom, looks like some of them are turning over. So IPI is down 8%, NTR down 3.5%. What was the MOS? That one's down 7%. So it looks like these commodities are taking a bit of a hit. We already looked at oil, but even if you check out like soybeans, those are /ZS down almost 2%. Corn down 1.5%. So this is interesting.
Yeah, and I will say, guys, like I've been in the commodities market for a long time. This was actually where I started with trading, was these commodity futures like corn and soybeans and stuff like that. And I will say, like, with the uptrend that we've been seeing, Mike, you just have to expect a bit of a pullback. Just like what we say with anything, like whether this is a stock whether it's a commodity, whether it's anything, you're looking at a huge upwards move like this, and then you're seeing a lot of consolidation up here, like right around this 750 resistance. And now, we're seeing corn start to fall over. We're seeing, soybeans start to fall over. Even crude oil is starting to fall over a little bit. So crude oil actually posted higher lows, Mike, which is pretty big on the daily chart. So that's a pretty big technical setup too. But looking at it, just these commodities are getting so overbought that I feel like we're due for a downtrend, and this stuff happens. Like at some point, people are going to start unloading their supply of soybeans. They're going to start unloading their supply of corn, and they're obviously we're getting back into these summer months, which also plays a factor. I know spring and summer is huge for these commodities. Whether like obviously it has different effects on each one, like soybeans and corn and stuff like that. But maybe we'll see the prices start to fall back down as the market. As more corn and more soybeans start coming onto the market in these warmer months. That's always another thought there. Like I said, commodities are a pretty crazy sector to be in. There's so much stuff that affects it, from weather to Congress to stuff like that. But as far as technicals go, Mike, like it's just so overbought right now. I feel like we're definitely due for a bit of a downturn, especially out of some of these plays like Mosaic. Like it's just insane to see some of these stocks flying up like this, let alone the commodities themselves.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then I hope you're seeing AMC, Tom, because it is breaking out.
Yeah, AMC up 12% now today. We just broke above that $22 resistance a few minutes ago, and we are now flying, Mike. We flew right through 22.50, almost up to 23. We got up to 22.93. Looks like we're getting a bit of rejection there now, and who knows, maybe we'll end up flying up through 23, but we're already up 12%. Definitely having a nice explosive breakout here. Same thing with GameStop, up to 166, up 8%. But Mike, this is awesome to see. AMC's back on the uptrend, and guys, if you guys are hyped up with AMC, let me know in the chat. I know a lot of traders are probably upset with AMC, so I'm curious to see who's still bullish on it. But yeah, it looks like it's hot so far today, Mike. Hopefully we continue to see this nice breakout type of momentum happening here.
Yeah. How is GME?
Yeah, GME, I think it was up 8%. Yeah, 8.4%. Still doing well, like I said before, up to 166. Definitely looking solid. It broke above that high of last week. The high of last week was around 158, but we ended up even breaking 160 today. So it's having a nice explosive move, lots of volumes coming in. So happy to see that. And I'm guessing, Mike, that AMC has a lot of renewed momentum with the retail traders. I know that last week we saw a lot of hype on Wall Street bets and stuff like that. And I think that we're going to finally see like another nice uptrend, at least for the next couple days. Like, I'm not saying that we're going to fly back up to, $40 or $70 or anything like that. But, it's definitely moving up here over the next, it definitely has some nice momentum heading into this week. So maybe we'll see some nice pops.
All right, there we go. Tom, what else are you seeing in the market right now? Like, I covered a lot of the breakout plays, but what other setups are you watching?
Yeah, let's see here. My watch list is actually pretty green today. I will say a lot of these chip plays were doing very well last week. Not necessarily an M use case. They were all over the place, but they are up to $80 now, and it looks like they tried to have a bit of a breakout here. Just wanted to throw these guys out there because I know that, Pelosi was in Micron, she was in Roblox, and a couple stocks like that, and they are up in the green today. So that was interesting to see. A couple of my favorite stocks lately, Mike, have been some of these safer plays, kind of like KO, Pepsi, and stocks like that. And it looks like they're still doing well. I mean, KO's not exploding today, but they're up, they're in the green slightly, and they're holding up around this high of last week. So maybe we'll continue to see some nice moves out of these slower movers. Like, I know Walmart is having a pretty nice extension back up today. Looks like Starbucks is actually moving decently. Even some of these China plays, Mike, like Baba had a pretty nice open so far. So I'm pretty happy with the way stocks are opening. Kind of like what we're seeing with Baba, though. A few of them are starting to pull back, but that can just be regular price action, so keep that in mind. But I'm really happy with a lot of these China plays, Mike, especially like the EV ones, like NIO and XPEV. They've had some pretty decent moves today. Although I will say XPEV, unfortunately, just gave a lot of the gains back over the past 10 minutes, which sucks to see. But NIO's holding up a lot better.
Yeah. So, this is interesting. So, because I was looking at my watch list too, and like while it's mostly green right now, it's a different kind of green. So for example, let's go to Roblox intraday. Technically, Roblox is green by 0.83%, but the price action is like it can be red within a minute or so, you know. And I feel like there's a lot of stocks in this setup today, at least on my watch list. Of course, some of them are like booming up like Tesla and stuff like that, but I am seeing a lot of setups that kind of look like Roblox.
Yeah, me too. And I'm sure Tesla's even pulling back right now. Yeah, well, not as bad, but they're starting to slow down too, even. And like you said, there's a lot of setups similar to Roblox. Like if we go look at Square, it's having a pretty similar move. Going down my watch list here, Mike, we got Roblox. I'm sure ChargePoint looks like that today. Yeah, ChargePoint started pulling back too. We have Blink. Blink is actually in the red. So looking at it, Mike, like a lot of my watch list is actually in the red, believe it or not. I'd say like it's 50-50 today, like half green, half red, but some of these plays in the red are pretty upsetting, Mike. Like we're seeing a lot of these big, I should say commodity plays move back, like the oil plays, like Oxy, of course. Even stocks like Chevron are starting to really fall down. X, which is U.S. Steel, is pulling back. So those commodities and even the big banks today, Mike, like JP Morgan had a huge pullback. Like I can't believe JP Morgan's down 2% again. I know that's nothing huge, but still, I mean, these banks had a pretty explosive move down at open, which is pretty telling. I wonder if they're a little bit worried about what's been going on with all the rate hikes and everything. I know initially, Mike, like the banks were happy that the rate hikes were going to be coming out, but the way they've been moving over the past couple months is definitely worrying me here.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so I'm just looking through a couple different screeners right now. It looks like we covered all of the main movement. What else? Oh, we have I Am Mike saying thoughts on Microsoft. So let's see, MSFT. It's looking pretty good today, Tom. It's up 2%. But looking at it on a daily, I'm a little torn with this one because over like the past couple of weeks, this stock went up. Let me calculate it really quickly. It went up from March 8th to today. Microsoft went up by 15%, which is quite a bit for a company like Microsoft. It's not a bad setup. It's just not an amazing setup in my opinion. It's really hard to bet against Microsoft. Their long-term chart is amazing. Their fundamentals are amazing. They're constantly adapting and innovating. They're just a solid powerhouse company, and it's really hard to bet against them. But at the same time, given their recent price action over the past couple weeks, I would not be one to go bullish on them at this point.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Mike, because a lot of stocks have been having this type of upwards movement. And, you know, we're seeing Microsoft break out today in a major way, Mike, which is awesome. You know, you can see they've been flying up the past couple of weeks. They started consolidating there around 305, and today they're finally having the breakout. But at the same time, Mike, like while Microsoft here is a powerhouse and they're continuing to break out up above a lot of these ranges, you know, we have a lot of other plays here, like Roblox, for example. You know, it consolidated at the top of the range, and now it's starting to fall back off. So while we're seeing some big players like Microsoft continuing to break up and out of their ranges, some of the other plays like Roblox, you could maybe say Unity, stocks like that aren't doing as well, and they're starting to almost fall back over. So it's interesting to see the powerhouse Microsoft, Mike, breaking out the way it is. It's definitely having a nice explosive move. And I will say it did consolidate for a couple days last week around 300. So maybe that was the consolidation that, you know, Microsoft needed before another push up. But either way, it's up today a lot, Mike, and it's up a lot right into a big resistance again. Like we're sitting right around 310. There's another big resistance I'm seeing right after this around 315. So we have to be careful, like you said, because it's just so explosive that I feel like at some point we're going to see a bit of a pullback. And I feel like if we start to see the SPY turn back over in more of a major way, then I think we'll see some of these other bigger stocks start to finally, you know, maybe come back down. And I will say Microsoft's really outperforming today, Mike. Like even compared to like Apple, I know they usually move pretty close to each other, but today Apple's not having near as well of a day.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the heat map of the S&P 500, and I know it lags sometimes, but it seems relatively up to date right now. But we can see what's really driving the S&P 500 is, we have Microsoft up 2%, but we have Tesla up almost 6%, which is pretty big. Amazon up 1.3%, and then some of these other tech stocks like Adobe up 2%, CRM up almost 1%. What else? Like Oracle up 1.6%. So it looks like that's what's really driving the market to the upside, or the S&P 500 to the upside today. We have some of these energy plays dragging the market down, but it really looks like Tesla and like Moderna and Microsoft and even like CCL are like the main players in the S&P today.
Yeah, CCL today you said, huh? Even they're doing well?
Yeah.
Wow, look at CCL up 5% almost, Mike. Like, what's going on here with these cruise lines? It actually, for some reason, CCL is actually off my watch list for some reason. I know my watch list is always glitchy and it's taking things away, but yeah, look at CCL having a day, 5%. Let's check out Royal Caribbean up another 2.22%. So this is huge, Mike. And I know that over the past like 6 months, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about these cruise lines doing better this summer. And I really hope that we see that happen. I know that we've recently seen the airlines come out with some good numbers. Like, I know the airlines aren't exploding today like AAL or anything, but I know like last week, we saw some good news come out with Southwest where they were going to add a new, it's called Wanna Getaway Plus. I don't know what you'd call that, like a new flight package deal. I know they always have the Wanna Getaway package. Now they're adding Wanna Getaway Plus, and they have a few other packages too, but it's always good to see these airlines innovating. And then they also called for increased bookings this year, and they kind of upped their guidance. So that was good to see there. Hopefully we keep seeing a nice uptrend, Mike, because I know like these reopening plays have been lagging behind a lot. So I'm glad to see like Royal Caribbean moving the way it is along with Carnival. It's nice to see these stocks finally going back on the uptrend. And like we keep saying, Mike, it seems like they're overextended, but they just keep going.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. And then we have Raymond mentioning NET. We have not looked at NET in a second.
It's been a while here.
Yeah, so it's definitely running up. Cloudflare, pretty big company. I'm not really bullish or bearish on them. It's the same way I feel about Microsoft in the like short-term sense, because they recovered so much over like the past couple of weeks where I'm not going to go bullish at this point. At the same time, they have that explosive tech stock potential with them, so I'm not going to short them either.
Yeah, and I feel what you mean, because it's tough. These stocks are up so much from their lows. Like, let's check out NET from the low to the high here. It's up like 58%. I mean, that is huge, guys. Like, like let's say, just about anybody. Like, if you would have just grabbed 100 shares down here at that $80 support and it flew up 58% right now, you'd be jumping up and down with joy. So that's it's obviously it's a huge gain there. And I'm really glad to see NET like breaking out, Mike. Like, I will say, I know we talked about a lot of stocks are in the same setup right now, and NET seems like another one of those recovery plays that are doing very, very well, which I'm happy to see. NET has been flying up, or it's been consolidating, I should say, for the past couple months, but we can see, Mike, it's had a lot of these explosive moves. Like NET moved from 80 up to 120, twice over the past couple months. It almost happened 3 times. They moved from 85 up to 120, but still, even that was a big gain. So they've retested this resistance around 120 quite a bit, or I should say 120 to 121. Now today, they're finally getting a nice breakout here. So I wonder if we're going to finally go back on the uptrend, Mike. It looks like this is like a bit of like a W pattern setting up. I know that the patterns aren't necessarily market making or anything like that, but hey, it's nice to see it breaking out up above that resistance. And I do feel like, Mike, that a lot of stocks are in this setup where we're starting to finally see some big moves off of these lower levels. And at some point, we're going to start seeing these stocks like NET extend up towards like 140 and then eventually like 160 and different levels like that. Keep in mind, every stock's different, of course, but a lot of the setups are pretty the same. Like if we look at NET, and then let's just switch sectors over to Enphase. Enphase just continues to run up, continues to break out. And it's huge to see these stocks like running up as much as they are. And like Enphase, Mike, off its low is up so much. It's mind boggling at this point to see how much these stocks are running.
Yeah. All right, Tom. Well, do you have any last-minute plays for the stream today?
I did want to bring up one thing because I've been seeing this all over the place, and I'll be honest, Mike, I've been waiting for something like this for a long, long time. So I've been a pretty big, I don't want to say like I have hated on Facebook, but I've been pretty against Facebook, the past like couple years, maybe year or so. Not necessarily their stock, but just their overall structure with their platform and everything like that. I feel like at some point the Facebook platform just has to have a big fundamental change, and I feel like that they're going that direction with all of the metaverse stuff going on and everything like that. But we're also seeing other stocks like Twitter fall, Snapchat fall. A lot of these big stocks are falling, and then we're seeing new social media companies come onto the market like DWAC. But I wanted to bring this up because Truth Social didn't have the best launch, Mike, but I'm actually seeing some huge news here with Elon Musk. And I'm sure some people have seen this over the weekend, but Elon Musk said he's considering building a new social media platform. And with the following Elon Musk has, this is going to be huge if this ends up coming out. And he's correct here. He made the remark claiming Twitter doesn't allow for free speech, and they definitely don't. They ban whoever they don't like, and they've even banned people like Trump, Mike. But then we see people like terrorist organizations continue to have accounts on there. So it's pretty crazy to see the stuff that Twitter's done, and they've even had their big CEO Jack Dorsey leave Twitter. So that's pretty telling, and he went to go focus more on Square or Block. But this is big, Mike, because if Elon gets into this social media sector, that's going to be a big hit on Facebook, on Twitter, and all these other stocks that are expected to recover up well. I just wanted to bring it up because, with the following Elon has, if he does this, I think that'll end up being pretty big. And I'll be honest, I've been waiting for something like this for a long time, and I hope it happens.
Yeah. It seems like Elon has his hand in a bunch of things. He has everything going on with Tesla, and then that electric vehicles, solar, SpaceX, OpenAI, Neuralink. What else? What else does he have? The Boring Company, and a bunch of things like that. And then maybe this social media platform. So it's pretty crazy. So good stuff there. I'm just reading through some of Elon's past companies and stuff, and yeah, it's interesting, but good stuff there. Last comment, we have Iranical saying, I bought 100 shares of Fubo at $17. As you know, the stock fell to $7. I don't know what I can do with this stock. What is your recommendation? So it depends on why you bought the stock. Did you buy the stock for a quick trade, or did you buy the stock because you believe in the company over the next decade? If you bought into this stock because you believe in the company and you think the company will continue to grow over the next couple of years, then you will probably want to hold it. However, if you were buying it just because of a trade, considering that you're down so much, there's not a ton of options that you have. Of course, you can close the position, which, you could close the position, or you could double down if you wanted to, but I don't recommend that. There is an advanced option strategy that I think I have one video on the main channel. It's for it's called the repair strategy. So basically what it would involve is you'd have to get a little bit creative on the options chain, and you have to exchange a couple spreads, and it will get a little complex. So that's another option. It's called the repair strategy. Feel free to look it up on the main channel. But even at that point, if you bought in at 17 and the stock's at 7, I don't think the repair strategy will even be that beneficial in that situation. So realistically, you might just have to trim some of the position and move on from and learn the lesson. We all have losing plays like that, and sometimes you just gotta, pay for that lesson.
Yeah, sometimes you do. And I will say, Fubo's in a pretty good sector. They're in the sports streaming sector, which can be good and it can be bad. They have a lot of competitors to deal with. And there's just more companies getting into the streaming sector. We've even been seeing Disney lately, Mike. We know they bought out ESPN over the past few years, and even they're now into the streaming or sports streaming industry. And I've also been seeing Fubo kind of get into under other industries as well. Like you can watch regular channels on Fubo also, but still, I mean, I feel like Fubo is pretty cool, Mike. It's another streaming platform. Like I said, it has a lot of competition, but I will say $17 is pretty high there. Like you're obviously down quite a bit. So like Mike said, it's going to be tough. You can maybe watch that repair strategy video and maybe try to do something like that. But like Mike said, sometimes you just have to cut your loss and understand that maybe you made a mistake. Now, if you really like Fubo for the long term, kind of like what Mike said, then just continue to hold it and maybe average in and you might do pretty well. But keep in mind, Fubo's fairly risky. It's in a very, I don't know what to call a crowded sector, Mike. Like there's so many companies in this sports streaming industry now, especially even just streaming in general, So there's a lot of issues that this company is going to have, but I hope they do well, Mike. I've seen a lot of stuff about Fubo possibly implementing sports betting into their live streaming platform, which could be really cool. But keep in mind, we're probably pretty far away from that. So it's going to be a tough one, Mike. But I feel like Fubo is going to be just another one of those growth plays that, as we know, we've been seeing a lot of these growth plays tank off lately, and you have to pick the right ones. And it's going to be a tough go here over the next couple of years, Mike, because there's a lot of these growth plays like Fubo at good levels now. And as we know, not all these plays that are low are going to end up panning out. So it's going to be tough to see which ones end up holding around.
Yeah, good point. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. Thank you, Tom, for posting that repair strategy video in the comments. So feel free to check that out. Before we close out, I just want to thank all of you guys for joining. So thank you so much, Carlos, I am Mike, Sean, Jimenez, Tuan, Michael, George, Bill, Ant, Russell, Hunter, Sean, Square, Iranical, and let's see, Vicky, and Raymond, and I think that's everyone. So yeah, I think I got everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. The market's not looking too bad today. Besides that, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day.